Well, hi everyone, and welcome again to another edition of Coffee with Craig. And we've got a guest today, which is going to be very interesting because we're going to be talking about the food industry. We're going to be talking about, are we killing ourselves? Are we poisoning ourselves with the food we're eating today? And is there anything we can do about it? And what is the future of food? So we're going to talk all about that today with our guest, Sakshi Mittal, and we're going to got some of our patrons on, and you can ask your questions here too. So welcome to Coffee with Craig. So welcome to the show, guys. And yes, we're going to be looking at the way food is influencing our world nowadays. I mean, here in the UK and around the world, I think the food is one of the most serious problems, probably bigger problem in many respects than all the wars that are going on. It's probably killing more of us than anything else. I remember when I went to America when the kids were little, and so it's going back some time now, but we went to Disneyland and we were actually laughing at the size of some of the people that were walking around. And now we're all like it. Me too. We're all putting on weight. We're all getting health conditions based upon food. And if you think about it, you think about the rise of cancer in society, for example. The idea of making industrialized food started round about the 1930s, and that's when gradually the number of people getting cancer and other related illnesses all started happening. You can kind of almost track a graph compared to how cancer and other conditions in the stomach and all sorts, lots of it, can all be put down to just plain poor eating. And it's a terrifying thought, really, because you go into the supermarkets and you look at the shelves. Sometimes I look at it all, and I look at this and I think, that's a whole row of sugar. All those biscuits, it's all sugar, and I'm no saint with these things, I eat this sort of stuff too, and we all do. And I think we all worry about how we can get round this, because it's not easy nowadays. We have convenience foods, and can we live without convenience food because of our pace of our life and things like that? So this is perhaps one of the problems, our laziness, isn't it, that can create a lot of problems when we come to these things. And I'm reminded, I got interested and wanted to sort of do this one today because of when I was in India. Now, some of you have seen my movie on Amazon Prime called Mystic Journey to India, and those of you that follow the channel know that I'm very interested in the Indian NAADI oracles, and I went to India to clear my karma. But we went right down into the depths of southern India, particularly Tamil Nadu, and all the places where we went to see the Siddha yogis and lived really in the villages here, barefoot, walking through these places. Amazing experience. But one of the things that struck me more than anything was the way they ate, because when I said, shall we go for a pizza, guys? No way would we touch this sort of thing. Do you want a cold Coke? No, we don't drink cold drinks. We only have warm drinks, And it was a completely different way of eating. And when you go into the restaurants there, basically they serve the food on a plantain leaf. It's just like a banana leaf, right? And they put all the different foods on it. And Mr. Prakash that was with me would say, right, take a bit of that one and mix it with that one and put them together and mix them and see if you can get the actual juice of the leaf in it too, because that will stimulate the actual good health qualities in this. And that one's for your eyes, and that one's for your stomach, and that one's for the brain, and that one's for vitality, that one's for longevity. So they had all this is in traditional Indian food. Now, the Indian food we eat nowadays is Bangladeshi food. When you go to the restaurants and things, all the heavy meat and rice dishes tend to be more from that tradition. But in ancient India, they had all this. And we went out and I was amazed that they ate it everywhere. They ate it in the temples. One of parts of my remit there was to feed people, and we fed the villagers, and you'd look at the happy faces as they eat this food. They really enjoyed their food there, and it became something that was a lovely way to eat. Whether you were in the, I went to, for example, orphanages and fed them in the orphanages, and we'd give them good quality food. But it was simple, and it was easy, to adjust to. So, I'm not a vegetarian. I have to admit, I have certain conditions that make it. I need to have a certain amount of meat, I believe. But in India, it became easy, and it also was something nice. It wasn't like this soul food they call it nowadays. It tastes like polystyrene, and you feel like you're eating something very bland. It's got to be something that. If you're going to convince somebody like me, who has been brought up in restaurants through his life, because my parents owned restaurants with rich foods, you need to sort of look at this in a different way, I think. So how can we adjust this? I mean, in India, it's easy. You can go vegetarian, dead simple, no problem. But if you're in the West, it's a much, much harder exercise. I certainly find it extremely difficult, personally. Well, hopefully, we're going to address some of these ideas and find out how we can do it. How can we change our dietary ways and get that obvious health benefits that can come, or if there are health benefits? I mean, I want to know your views. I want to hear both views of the arguments. And don't forget, always with these programs, guys, don't forget, give us a thumbs up. Sorry to always ask for this, but we need it for the algorithm always. Give us a thumbs up every time you come to the show. But also put your comments. Do you disagree? Are we getting out of control in society with this whole idea of vegetarianism? I remember one last thing. Do you remember? I don't know if anybody ever saw the Woody Allen movie, The Sleeper, and he woke up after hundreds of years sleep in the future, started his Volkswagen, which started first time. And one of the things he discovered that in his I can't remember what the name of the restaurant was, but he had a vegetarian restaurant. They discovered it was all wrong about this. And they were saying, eat up your hot fudge sundae because it's good for you.
Well, he's fully recovered, except for a few minor kinks.
Has he asked for anything special?
Yes, this morning for breakfast, he requested something called wheat germ, organic honey, and tiger's milk.
Oh, yes, those are the charmed substances that some years ago were felt to contain life-preserving properties.
You mean there was no deep fat? No steak or cream pies or hot fudge?
Those were thought to be unhealthy. Precisely the opposite of what we now know to be true.
Have we gone down the wrong path with that? Have we gone too far with it? Or can we find a balance? Anyway, I'm going to introduce our guest to us today now, which is Sakshi Mittal. She's from a company called Foodhak, and has got a beautiful restaurant as well. We're going to pick her brains about some of these ideas. And I've got the patrons with me today who can also ask questions by Zoom. And you're welcome to join us on Zoom if you want. Have a look in the description below to become a patron. And we can investigate and look at this further. So, welcome, Sakshi. Hello.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm so excited. I love these topics.
Yeah. Well, you've got very deeply into this. I mean, you're talking about, we've got mutual friends in, for example, DPAC Chops, and we came along and DPAC has been on this channel, for example, and we had a fabulous interview with him. And we came along to your restaurant. What was it called again? It was Jugaad, wasn't it? It's an unusual name. Jugaad. What does that mean?
So Jugaad in Hindi means a hack. And we feel that we have hacked a way of restaurant dining when it comes to Indian food. We've made, indulgent, rich Indian food into cleaner, low-calorie, dairy-free, gluten-free, refined sugar-free, basically all the major allergens that cause all these dreadful diseases today. We feel that we've hacked a way of taking out all this bad stuff, putting it on the good stuff, and keeping the flavors as delicious as, any other restaurant with rich, indulgent, similar dishes.
Yeah, well, we came down to see it. It was down in Camden Stables in London there. I love Candom because it's my daughter always usually drags me down there because that's the Gothic capital of the world down there with the for her, you know, and all the cyber stuff and things down there they got. It was an unusual place, lovely building, and I must admit I did thoroughly enjoy the food there. But you're coming at it in a different angle, aren't you? Because the way you've been talking about it is you've taken on board Ayurvedic principles. So, I mean, when we talk about Ayurvedic, this is the old ancient Indian system. This is what those people in India were doing when they were telling me that we mix this and that. And there's thousands of years back, they've been practicing this. But shall we explore the idea what Ayurvedic is? Because this, I think, this is the difference. What you're trying to do with your mission with these things, isn't it? Really.
Correct.
As far as I understand, I don't know a great deal about Ayurvedic, but as I understand it, that each person has a different type of quality. That some food for one is not necessarily the right food for someone else. That we have what we call the doshas, as they call it. If I've pronounced it right, I always get these Indian words wrong. And that some of us, and this involves things like, you know, many questions, including things about your personality to find what your dosha is. And that some people have vata, which is like an air energy to it. Some have pitta and some have kapha. And in my case, it was tridosha, which I got completely confusing because it meant it was all three, which confused me when I did the test. So I didn't know where to begin.
Which actually means that you are perfectly balanced. Your energies, your digestive energies are actually perfectly balanced. And there are actually tridoshic meals. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's all about personalized nutrition. Even back in the day when technology or words like personalization didn't exist, Western medicine didn't exist in India, right? So people were looking at plants and nature to try and find solutions, to try and heal you from your health
Mhm.
problems. And actually, if you look at pharmaceutical products today, a lot of them are derived from plants and from nature. But unfortunately, they also have a lot of side effects because they're made in labs and et cetera, et cetera. So, why don't we then go back to these plants and incorporate them in our diets and avoid the side effects altogether, right? And avoid these pharma products altogether as much as we can. And therefore, avoid these chronic diseases, live longer, happier, healthier. Why can't this happen in a restaurant? Why can't this happen at home? Why can't personalization happen on your mobile phones, which are all smartphones today? So that's kind of what Foodhak is trying to do, is to create this sort of end-to-end ecosystem of food as medicine and personalized nutrition. So we have a mobile app as well for those who, have the time to cook, are curious, have health goals. They can actually download our mobile app on the UK app stores for free. um, it helps you, you know, on an ingredient level, recipe level. You can now actually, it's funny you talked about supermarkets and shelves. I'm actually just coming from my local massive supermarket. And I had the same reaction as you, which is just overwhelming amount of sugar. We also have a scanning tool. So I used a scanning tool because I'm traveling and I wanted to get some snacks. We have food hack snacks, but I thought, let me get some snacks for my kids. When I scanned some of these things on our food hack app, the processing score is so high, ultra processed foods, right? So, the app tries to help you on the go. You've got your mobile phone, you're traveling, you're in a supermarket, you are at home trying to look for a recipe, you're learning about ingredients, it helps you with that. We have an online meals platform for those busy professionals who don't have the time to cook but are looking for, health and wellness goals. We have a snacking range for kids and for travel. And now, very recently, we also took this into restaurants, saying we need to redefine the way we eat in restaurants because, a lot of people, Craig, like you, grow up eating a lot in restaurants, you know and yeah, I just feel there's a different future of food where food is a lot more intelligent, where you're using it a lot more as your medicine and still keeping the deliciousness intact, the variety, the look, feel, texture, color, smell. I mean, could you tell the butter chicken you ate was dairy free? when you came
Yeah.
to the restaurant. You couldn't tell.
The thing I think I think is an important thing is this: the word you came up with there was a personalization of food in a way, because when you look into Ayurvedic, like there's all the different types of personality, and there's one food for one is not going to be good for another. And looking aside from the what's in a food, it's also the energetic quality of food is different for each person as well, isn't it? Really, because I mean, they say that food has the it can have tamasic, which is heavy energy. It can be sattvic, with very fresh food like fresh oranges and fresh fruit is very full of this kind of life force energy. Or it can be ragistic, which has the qualities of being energizing, really. And we all need a bit of all of it, even the tamasic. We need to get that balance right in our bodies, because our auric energy is like that. Our spiritual body is made up of these same energetic qualities. So how on earth can a person, I mean, often I mean, from my point of view, I've often personally found that a paleo diet has been quite good for my health, actually, which is kind of meat and vegetable, but meat and fruits mainly actually work with me, in terms of I feel better with those type of things. So I think everybody is very different in many respects. I mean, I don't think a person who is an Eskimo, for example, is the wrong word for it nowadays, but you know what I mean. People in those environments, a cold environment, would be able to survive on vegetarian food, for example. And each of us, I think our bodies as well as our spirits are targeted differently. So how do you target to find out what is right for one and what is wrong for another? Have you looked into that? Is that something you've explored?
Absolutely. So, look, Ayurveda has its own way of looking at your doshas and, helping you personalize your diet. For example, I am a Kapha Pitta, right? Because you have your doshas also keep changing, by the way.
Ah,
But you do have, yeah, they change a
yeah.
lot every week, every day, even, maybe even multiple times a day. And now, I mean, these days with technology, you can even do a very simple 15 questionnaire and you can kind of figure out what your dosha is for the day. But you do have a, predominant dosha type. Like mine, for example, is always a mix of kapha pitta, right? And for me, for example, plant-based foods really suit me. They really, really suit me, right? And actually, meat-based products don't. And I often have this, like, I don't even feel like eating it. It's like I'm not really tempted by them unless there are certain particular dishes in certain restaurants, whatever. Um, and Yeah, I guess doshas are your digestive energies, right? So, what is the state of your gut microbiome at that point in the day, right? And your gut and your mind share over 1,000 neurons, right? So, good food, good mood is a real thing. You
Mm.
talked about like we talked about war and welfare of the population, right? It's funny because me and Deepak were having this conversation. I don't know if you were there, but on the panel, and I loved what he said, which is actually by studying the population's microbiome, how well they eat, you can almost predict wars. Because if you have a poor gut microbiome, you will be unhappy, because it's linked with your mental health. If you're an unhappy person, you will make bad choices, which results in all this stuff like war and a lot of, unrest in the population. So it's quite fascinating how powerful food can be. Now, in terms of personalization, we this generation, I include myself in this, like we're always looking for validation and data points, right? And luckily for us, there's been a lot of clinical research now validating Ayurveda. I guess when I was growing up, I don't think I had that. And even if there was, I don't think my grandmother could articulate it and tell me why a certain thing like amla, Indian gooseberries, why is it good for me? Right. And she would just say, look, I don't know, it's just good for you. And it just didn't work, as well. Whereas actually today I look at clinical studies where you see this Indian gooseberry. It's just a larger version of a normal gooseberry, by the
I've
way.
I've tried them actually. They're very helpful. You can buy them in a tablet form too, can't you?
Yeah, but again, tablets, microplastics, do they get absorbed, load on your liver? The point is, if you actually eat them, in different ways, you can cook them, you can make a pickle out of them, you can make a dessert out of them, whatever it is. People have done clinical studies. It was a pretty large population set, double-blinded, placebo-controlled, where half the population were on statins and half were not, but they consumed the Indian gooseberry. And the entire population segment had very high cholesterol. They tracked this population, and over 3 months, they actually saw the same decline in cholesterol. So, which one would you pick? A statin, a drug, which costs you probably 10 times more money and has off target effects, side effects? If you don't see the side effects today, you'll see them tomorrow. Or would you take a natural plant from nature? Right. So, the point I'm trying to say is that there's so much, and this is Ayurvedic, amla, the consumption of amla was quite common back in the day in Ayurvedic meals because Ayurveda says you should have 6 different tastes on your plate to kind of balance these energies, right? Sweet, salted, astringent, bitter. I can't remember the other two, but there's 6 different tastes you should have on that banana leaf that you talked about. Little bit of each. And amla comes in that sour category. Now, what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to get with this is that today the level of personalization you can do, right, you know, is quite advanced. With the help of AI, generative AI, and all of that, you can actually use that in your favor and help personalize. So, like, I'll give you an example, right? Like, say we at Foodhak, for example, have been building these clinical models. So we take every piece of clinical research that comes out and we clean it up. Like, who is it funded by? Is it funded by a pharma company? If so, keep it aside. We're not going to use it as an example. So we have lots of different parameters and we rank this research. How strong is this piece of research on food when it says X equals Y? Then we bring in doctors to further improve these models. So these are proprietary models. If you tell us on the app, on the onboarding journey, your height, weight, gender, ethnicity, your goals, any allergens, any health conditions, these 7 questions, we can personalize down to an ingredient level what you should be having to be able to achieve those goals that you told us. We can give you recipes that are personalized for you, right? We can make a food hack meal plan for you, personalized for you, snacks, this, that, right? So I'm saying, like, Ayurveda did it on that doshic level, based on your sort of gut energy levels, digestive energy levels, right? But I think today you can use AI and supercharge Ayurveda and personalize nutrition.
It's an amazing idea, really, I think. And the big question, of course, people will ask is, does it taste any good? Because you sent me some, and some of the stuff that we tried, uh, it doesn't look good. I've got to say, it doesn't look like, oh, that looks yum yum yum, but it tastes lovely, and amazingly, actually, it's ever so quick to prepare. I mean, I, Jane will tell me off because I never cook, even though I've been in restaurants all my life. Jane does it all, and my daughter had a shot at some of it too, and really loved it. And the restaurant food was nice. So I got to say, from a personal point of view, it was delicious food, and I think it is worth. Obviously, it's a lot of thoughts. It's worth it both from enjoying it, and you're not just eating horsehair mattresses here thinking you're getting feeling better. You're eating something that you know is doing you good and you enjoy. I'll still be a victim personally to the sugar and all the addictive foods that we're given from society, but I think there's an awful lot that can be gained from this. I think I'd like now, it'd be interesting to bring in some of our patrons here to see if you've got any ideas. I'd like to bring in Sheila next, if I may. Sheila, if you'd like to unmute. I know you've got a few questions you'd like to ask. Would you like to fire away and say what you'd like to say and thoughts?
Yes, Sakshi, it's such a pleasure to meet you. I am a great believer in this because I have experienced having a fatty liver. The doctors in India, where I was staying in Gurgaon for about 21 years, telling me that they were quite concerned. And I was in tears. And I happened to find a very good Ayurvedic specialist. And within 3 months, the camera doesn't lie, my liver counts went down to not only normal, but brilliantly normal. And I was shocked. I've always been interested in Ayurveda, being of an Indian background. I'm a Bengali myself from Calcutta, and having always had an interest. So that was one example which the blood counts, the information that we get in India, very extensive reports, were excellent. And I applied some of those things to my husband. And during COVID, I made everybody, including myself, we all had COVID. I made everybody in the house have raw amla, raw Indian gooseberry. And a very astounding thing happened. My husband had had a lump on the neck, and we were very scared. And he'd, of course, gone to the doctor, and the doctor had given antibiotics, and the first course of antibiotics didn't work. So I'm not one to interfere with medicines. Obviously, I'm not medically qualified, but we took this amla, and within a week or two, the lump had disappeared. And they were ready for a surgery, just to give you an idea.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I actually
Incredible.
I reversed my liver breakdown with this,
Okay.
with the food, which is why I actually launched this company, because I
Okay.
just felt that, like, I mean, I'm lucky I had a science background. I started out in Pfizer. I was investing in life sciences, when I was in finance. And I was finding that by the time, even when I didn't have the liver breakdown, just in general, I was finding that by the time you get a disease, it's often too late.
Correct.
Diseases, most of the reasons for deaths are chronic illnesses. Chronic illnesses are lifestyle related. 80% of your lifestyle is your food, right? And yet our doctors don't study nutrition as part of their five-year degree. And this is why, if you look at the government healthcare budget deficits, whether it's the NHS or it's anywhere else in these developed markets, it keeps increasing, but health outcomes are declining, right? And nutrition is the key. Actually, it's the key to break this cycle. And then, weirdly enough, it's almost like it was fate, for me to launch Foodhak, because I ended up developing a liver breakdown, and doctors said the same thing to me. There is no link with lifestyle. We're just going to keep testing your LFTs, liver function tests. And I just didn't take no for an answer. I went back in the clinical research, changed my food, and managed to reverse it. So I totally feel you. It's crazy how modern medicine regulations, it lags,
Yeah.
so
I
far
also
behind.
I also went on to research. There's a very famous doctor, Harvard doctor, Dr. William Lee, who had written a book called I think Eat to Beat Disease. Incredible. He was talking about how fruits and vegetables can change the genetic makeup. So can you imagine eating one kiwi every day reverses the genetic, upset that may have occurred in your chromosomes? I mean, I just found that mind blowing, and this is coming from a Harvard doctor.
Yeah.
So, Sakshi, certainly after this interview, my hands up. I would like to be one of your customers because I need what you have. And I just have one other question I wanted to ask. How do you adjust the Ayurvedic diet if somebody has some taste for non-vegetarian? As I say, I'm a Bengali, so I eat a lot of fish. Not such a great meat eater. How do you manage this in your diet?
Yeah, I mean, look, we are not only plant-based. Ayurveda, traditional Indian Ayurvedic dishes, we have a line of that, but we also have fish, prawn, etc. We just make sure that we source these from the highest quality possible suppliers. So local, like we will try, and we know the footprint of the chicken that we source. Like we know where it's bred, like which farm in Kent, or we're very careful about the sourcing of these ingredients, more careful than any other ingredient, because unfortunately the world we live in today, animal cruelty, hormones, all of these are real issues, right? So we actually do have dishes, like one of my favorites is a jerk prawn rice bowl. It's quite spicy, but we do have stuff like that because we understand people have, food is an experience. and we don't want to snatch that away from you. We don't want to deprive you. You shouldn't have cravings, and listen to your body. If your body is telling you that you want to have fish, and it is the right move. Like we were just discussing, like Craig was saying that paleo suits him with meat and vegetables, right? And I was saying that actually what suits me is a very highly predominantly plant-based. How different. We're all so different, right? So even listening to your body and understanding, I think is a great step in the right direction.
That's great. I'm going to call in. We've got someone else coming in now as well. I'd like to, Karina. Thank you for that, Sheila. Some fantastic questions there. Very interesting, actually. Karina, you unmute yourself. Yeah, you're unmuted. You've got some questions you'd like to ask.
Yes, thank you, Craig and Sakshi. I wanted to ask, are you familiar with Zoe, the new app in gut health? I can see some parallelism, but it seems to me that Zoe is more maybe a Western version of what you have in mind. Can you just tell me your thoughts about it and how do you feel is similar, different?
Yeah, so I mean, look, we're similar and different. I think that's a great observation. Zoe doesn't do meals and products and snacks. I think they've launched a couple of things, maybe a gut shot, stuff like that with Dr. Tim Spector. But, we've always had food, because I always felt that, you can measure, you can have fancy tech, you can check your microbiome, you can do your Ayurvedic doshas. But in today's day and age, we live busy lives in busy cities. Unless you provide me with a better option to pick from the supermarket, from a grocery store, from a coffee shop, from a restaurant, unless you provide me with a choice, unfortunately, change won't happen. Right. So I've always wanted to build food products, and have them in the market so people have a choice, you know. And now you can get anti-inflammatory and gluten-free and dairy-free delicious stuff. You can get an Ayurvedic curry through us, right? Because someone has to do it, and this is the future of food. So for one, like Zoe is more of a diagnostic place. So they don't have food as much. Second of all, I think the way Zoe looks at the world is a lot of testing. So they will, like, you will end up doing a lot of blood tests, or eat 5 muffins a day for 3 days and let me check your blood sugar. It's a lot of diagnostics, testing, testing, testing. And listen, personally, I think it's expensive to test. So obviously, only a certain section of the population can access that. Wealthy, premium sections of the population that are curious, or maybe that have disease, right? Whereas the way we built Foodhak was food as medicine is everyone's birthright, and this knowledge should be accessible by everybody. Those who can afford our food products are probably busy people. Um, they have it. Those who can't afford our food products should still be able to make it on their own, should still be able to, access healthcare through food on their fingertips. So that's the big difference between us and Zoe, right? There's a lot of testing, I feel, a lot of money, hundreds of pounds slash, whatever, up to £1,000. It depends. So that's, at least that's in my opinion, the key differences.
Yeah.
But yes, similarities are the personalized nutrition approach that we're taking.
Yeah. And this is for both Craig and yourself. I don't know if you also are aware, but similar to the India, like Ethiopia, and they also have like I don't know if maybe there's a connection the way they think about the same way as the Indian people think about. So you have a big plate and you have a big flat. It's like a bread, but it's not. It's like very soft, like a pancake bread. And you have different portions of food, and again, different colors and stuff. I don't know if you're aware of how the Ethiopian people they serve their food and you see some similarities with Indian. I wonder if somewhere in the old days they have the same approach, like we understand how food works and how we should eat food, and so there's clearly some parallel. I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there are a lot of cultures, around the world, that have certain parallels, right? Like certain things that grew in Africa did not grow in India, and vice versa, and Western world and stuff like that. So yeah, no, definitely. And I'm sure that there were some wise men who were studying the Vedas in India. I'm sure there were these wise men in Ethiopia who were also doing this.
Maybe
You
they
know,
cross.
yeah, yeah.
Something I'd like
Absolutely.
to sort of bring in here a little bit, actually, something that's quite topical at the moment with this, actually, guys, is it's Robert Kennedy in the USA is making it one of his uh, goals in life to challenge what's happening in the supermarkets at the moment. This perhaps this is the start. I mean, here in the UK, we've also been talking about should we have a sugar tax and so forth. Do you think we're getting to a point now where governments are beginning to recognise that the food industry is actually a force for evil in some respects, that it really is trying to poison people, that perhaps the food industry is, there's big moves nowadays. I mean, a lot of people watch this channel also hate the idea of the way globalization is limiting our choices more and more, that everything, all the restaurants you go to are all sort of all places that where there's no mum and pop restaurants anymore. It's all big organizations. There's no that I got a place in Italy, and the little village there is wonderful. All the villagers cook. Each village have different recipes, different foods. They're known for different type of wine and so forth. Something that we've lost entirely nowadays. So is someone like Robert Kennedy somebody that we should be looking to as somebody that could really be the one that is going to help us perhaps with the fact that food is killing us, really? Have you got any strong views about it, and have any of the others that are here as well got any views that we'd like to share, perhaps about where the world's going with this? First of all, what do you think, Sakshi?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like, this is what I started my conversation with is when I was investing in life sciences, like cancer companies, right? Finding cures for all this cancer. The realization was that, this is a systemic issue in, our societies, right? It's the food that's not being tackled. Doctors don't study nutrition, therefore they can't prescribe nutrition. You go to it's quite commonly known, and a lot of doctors now talk about it openly in the UK. You go to the NHS, you have a cardiac surgery, and right out of surgery, when you're in the recovery room, you're offered a ham and cheese sandwich. How is that okay? We all know processed meats like ham are bad for, patients with cardiovascular illnesses. It's not okay, right? Similarly, you go to the American Cardiology Department website and you've just had a cardiac arrest. Again, gives you recipes to do with ham and pork and all these processed meats. It's not okay, right? And, I mentioned I'm just coming from my local supermarket. We've been testing out a new feature of my app, but I just thought I'll go and check it out. How is it okay that the biggest health and wellness app in the UK today, it's this scanning app. I don't know if you know, but I found about it through my nephew, my 10-year-old nephew, who was like scanning stuff like a bar of chocolate or a bag of crisps and telling me, look, it scores so well, so I can eat it. And I'm like, it's impossible to score so well. What's going on? Right. So I looked into the scoring mechanism that this app uses. By the way, this app in the UK has 58 million users. That's what the Apple Store says. Right. I got to know about it from my 10-year-old nephew who opened that bag of crisps because he scanned it and it scored really well. And I'm like, looking at this thing, I know this is not correct. Today I went into the supermarket. I scanned a seaweed crisps. The Itsu seaweed thins. I scanned those and I scanned a bag of hula hoops with the same app. They both scored the same. How? But this is how the food is killing us. One, by misinformation, right? Because this is misinformation. Seaweed, you can't compare fried, God knows what. I don't even think it's potato in hula hoops. I think it's some kind of plastic or a mix of cement or God knows, right? What is in there? But so I looked at the scoring mechanism. I looked at the scoring because I don't recognize any of the ingredients there, right? I looked at the scoring mechanism. Why is this app, scoring these two things in the same way? And I realized they're using an outdated, illegal scoring mechanism, right? Where, it basically just takes your calories, your total fat, your carb, your whatever, but not understanding where the carbs are coming from. If it's coming from a vegetable or is it coming from white bread? It's not contextualizing it. So
Yeah, I
that's
think it's
something like a diet Coke might even score better than a salad. And our young kids in this country are growing up looking at that app, right, as a guiding tool. No one's stopping them. Government talks about HFSS and all that rules, but like, when are they coming in? Why are supermarket shelves overwhelmingly stocked with refined sugars, things that are constantly causing glycemic shocks in our bodies? Why? Where is the aisle when you purchase something? That aisle in front of you is supposed to be the most powerful aisle, right? Spontaneous buys. Oh, let me add the chewing gum. Let me add that Kit Kat. When is this going to change? Why can't you say, let me add something nutritious? I don't know, whether it's just whole nuts, whether it's, I don't know, like we have crackers that have more omega and magnesium than a pill. It has more natural protein just with seeds. When is that time going to come when you're like, why don't I take this? Make a healthy choice for once,
Yeah,
right?
we have situation, don't we, where, I mean, you go and look by the packaging's at fault as well. Actually, I mean, I would like to see standardized packaging through the world as well to stop massive waste and reusable packaging. But you'll see on there sort of that bring words up like low fat. Fat is the energy, low fat, and so in order to make it taste, they'll fill it with sugar and they'll fill it with
Yes.
flavorants and artificial, and so you think, and it's all nice green packaging and all looking like it's and smiley people on it and everything like this sort of thing, and you're buying poison. You're
Yes.
buying something that's killing you,
Yes.
and yet it's all made to look good, and the advertising industry too.
Yeah.
Advertising bad, dangerous foods to children. When you get Ronald McDonald and all the rest of it, it's aiming stuff, and it's at kids. It's trying to educate us into eating badly. And I think this time we had legislation actually, but I'm not.
Yeah.
They say
But
it's a free market, but you can't trust the big companies. They're
yeah, I mean,
corrupt.
I will give you another example from today's supermarket experience. Exactly what you said, which is like the advertising and marketing. There's these cereals which said high fiber brand, whatever flakes, by these big companies. But like high fiber was so big, it was overwhelmingly like positive. Oh, let me, so I'm like, okay, let's scan this, right? And we scanned it. And in this app, the one I was mentioning, Yuka, it scored very highly. Oh my God, best thing on planet Earth. And that, by the way, this is why we have built a scanning tool, because I was so offended, with this scoring mechanism. So, like on the Foodhak app, if you scan this brand, high fiber brand cereal, what comes up is a low score. Why? Because in our app, we also take into account the processing factor, right? So the app actually tells you that while this is a source of fiber, not high in fiber, as what the packaging says, it's a source of fiber. Please choose fresh vegetables, whole grains, legumes, etc., rather than going for these processed cereals every day for breakfast. That's what you need, right? You're absolutely right. The marketing on some of these things. There's another one. I was passing by, and it was yogurt coated cranberries. And oh my God, the ingredient label. So, I've got my nails done. The ingredient label literally had the word shellac in it. And I was looking at it, I was like, oh my God, isn't that supposed to be on my nails? What's it doing inside this pack? And people are probably buying it for their kids, thinking it's healthy.
Yeah, and of course, another thing that's not included is the pesticides in a thing. I mean, my dad used to say, when he got to my age, he used to say, actually, Craig, I need all the preservatives I can get at my age. But really, it is, we are taking in chemistry all the time, and chemistry that's not really been tested, and yet we know that people are dying of illnesses that perhaps we shouldn't be dying of, particularly the cancers. I mean, who knows what this does on a cellular level? And of course the food industry, I think, is very corrupt in this way as well. So I just want to ask any more of the patrons here, give me a wave if any of you would like to ask a question, because we're coming closer to the end now. Yeah, Maria, would you like to go next, please? If you unmute yourself.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Got you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was a bit late. I'm sorry. I missed a lot of what you've been talking about, but my question is, I have right now my mother is suffering from Alzheimer's disease. It's very, very, very sad and on all of us. And my question is, what do you see in the food industry that may be causing this or making it worse? Or do you have any view on just on this topic?
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Maria. I'm really sorry to hear that. I can only imagine how difficult it is, or it must be for you and the family. But you know, with Alzheimer's, you either have that gene. I'm not sure if you guys have tested. Do you know if you have it? It's called the ApoE.
Well, probably her father, my grandfather, also had it, so I bet it's in my genes also.
It,
So
it,
I just
you
want to
know,
do what I can. I mean, for mom, it's too late. She's got it, but maybe I can at least delay it so my children will not
yes,
have to endure this. So
yes.
I'm trying to build muscle and eat as clean as I can.
Mm.
Um,
So,
so
so actually, I think this is the best thing that you can do for yourself, having the awareness that actually with something like Alzheimer's, you know, you have to start a decade or two before treating it, before you get it. And lifestyle makes a massive difference. There's a lot of clinical studies actually proving it. So I think when it comes to, I mean, music is a great source. So if you listen to music at 40 megahertz, I think it is, you should double check this, every day as a meditation in the morning for, I don't know, keep increasing it. Start with 10 minutes, go to 20, 30, do it every day. Listening to music at a certain frequency has shown to help with Alzheimer's delay and reversal, right? Number
okay.
one. Number one. Number two, nutrition has a big role to play. And for that, I will tell you, please, 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 and this is not marketing, please download the Foodhak app from the app stores and right there that, one of the 7 questions will be your goals or, something you're suffering from. Please write Alzheimer's. See what the clinical research says about it. There are a whole bunch of foods that have shown to help with just improving the mental, cognition. For example, mushrooms. Um, there's a lot of new science coming on
Yeah.
psilocybin, etc., which frankly I'm not the right person for it. But exercise, walking, uh,
Mhm.
these are like just the daily
Yeah.
housekeeping things. But I
Mhm.
do think music therapy and nutrition, I think, can really
Yeah.
benefit you. And of
What
course,
was the name of the app again, please?
Foodhak, Foodhak. It's on the UK app stores.
I'll put a link in the description for this, so you'll
Oh,
be able to see
great.
all this.
Yeah.
It'll all be in the description. And one other thing I would
Thank you.
also add, which I think would be interesting to add, particularly on this one, and it's not always just what we eat. Sometimes I think it's what we don't eat. And often, I think a lot of the illnesses we have in society is that we overeat and we're constantly eating. And one of the things I like to do from time to time is fast a day,
Yeah.
literally, where you don't eat at all. And there has been a lot of research to show that not only does the body have a chance to regenerate it and the cell growth, but also studies have shown that the actual neurons of the brain will regrow their connections. And this happens only when we fast. And if you do, and even intermittent fasting, as they call it now, where you don't eat from a period, say from 6 o'clock until you go to bed. So you stop eating at 6 o'clock in the evening. When that's when we all get hungry and we snack, and that's when we're most at risk of eating the junk food because we're also being bombarded with adverts about making you eat. Not eating as well, I think, is very very important, as well as yoga as well, because I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but putting your feet up higher than laying on the floor and putting your feet up higher is like a little bit like doing a headstand. It helps to give you blood to the brain and renourishes for things like that as well. I mean, I think there's another whole thing we should explore sometime about yoga and pranayama and these things. But would you agree, Sakshi? Again, have you looked into this as well? Are there times when we should not eat?
Absolutely. I mean, fasting, I mean, this goes back to Ayurveda as well. Fasting was quite prominent even back in the day. But yes, there are some people who have blood sugar sensitivities who can't deal with it. And so those guys should, refer to a doctor or take a more bespoke approach. But yes, fasting definitely has its benefits. You mentioned new connections. There's also research to show stem cell generation after, I think, 36 hours or something like that. I mean, basically at every milestone. So I think, is it 16 hours? I think you hit ketosis, then 18 hours, 24 hours, something happens, 36 hours, stem cell generation. So there's definitely a lot of benefits, especially for those who are diabetics, those who have cardiovascular issues. There's a lot of research showing those who have hormone issues. I think for females, around menopause. There's a lot of mental clarity being. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of benefits of fasting, but it has to be on an individual level. Some people can't deal with it, right? If you're exercising very heavily, that's very tough, to do that. But yeah, I think yeah, Alzheimer's and dementia are one of the four horsemen. We think it's rare. It's actually not that rare. It's one of the four reasons that kill most of us. Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, diabetes, and cardiovascular. Four of the biggest, reasons. And Alzheimer's and dementia is the most tricky because once you get it, it's too late, right? You have to work on it like 10 to 20 years before. And I think everything you said, Craig, yoga, good sleep, companionship, happiness, all of those things are very important. But I think there are certain very specific things you can do. Like I mentioned, the music therapy and the personalized nutrition you can access. Just making sure you add certain things in your diet. And if it's fasting, why not? One day is nothing, you know? Um, we had a lot of fasts in India growing up, actually, throughout the year. I mean, Sheila would know this. Navratras have just finished, and fasting was, I think it's a way to cleanse your body, and it's, people make it about religion and, I follow this, I follow that. But actually, if you go into the science of it, it comes down to just one thing. It is cleansing your body a couple of times a year.
Yeah, and purging as well, once a month, they say in India too, don't they? But we won't go into that one for now. But anyway, I think we're finished there, if that's okay. I mean, there's so much food for thought there, to use a headline. That was really interesting. And the most important thing, I think, Sakshi, is that you've given us some practical ways we can start to try to address these things. I think most of us feel absolutely helpless in the world out there with the way it's going. So I'd like to really thank you for coming on and sharing your thoughts and ideas here. As you know, I will put a link in the description for anybody that wants to explore this in more detail. Go and download the app. Fabulous. I really did love the restaurant, Juggad too, also in Candom Stables, London. Great place to visit if you're coming to England too. If you're coming in from America, Camden is the real cool place to be nowadays. It's modern day Carnaby Street, really, I suppose. And it's been absolutely a joy having you on the show. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Craig.
And just to conclude to everybody, thanks for being part of the show, everybody. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up. Do subscribe if you've not been to the channel before. And could I suggest you have a look at another one of our videos? The next video coming up is all about my interview with DPAC Chopra. I'll put a link on the screen for you for that. DPAC is very much into all this type of stuff as well. He thinks about it in terms of also about how we live as beings on a quantum level as well as living on a physical level. These vibratory energies that we're talking about, Ayurveda, are part of this whole new philosophy, I think, that's beginning to open up in the world about how we should relook at things and use science as to bring forward the ideas that are very, very ancient. So check the next video up on the screen now.